Hello, welcome back to another video lecture of Financial Derivative and Risk Management. Today we are going to discuss an important topic, that is purchasing power parity. So what is that purchasing power parity? If in a layman's term, if we will understand, simply think of a place you had been in India and had a thing over there. Let's say a burger. You had a burger in McDonald's of Delhi, and the same burger you are going to have at USA. So what will be the price of that too, when we are going to pay it in rupees and we are going to pay it in dollar? And what is the value of that when we are going to exchange it? So is it a same price that we are paying for that, or what is the value of that? Isn't it a very important thing to query on? That is what the concept of purchasing power parity is, that what is the value of money when we are going to exchange it, or what is the purchasing power of that particular money or that particular currency or that particular rupee that we are going to talk of. So that is a very interesting thing, and that is also a very interesting thing to query on when we are going to do a derivative or we are going to do a trading on an underlying asset as currency which is going to trade across the boundary. So that is a very interesting thing to be talked of. So in today's class we are going to talk on that is the purchasing power parity. So without much delay, let's start our class. So this purchasing power parity is both a theory about exchange rate determination and a tool to make more accurate comparisons of data between the countries. And these purchasing power parities are the rates of currency conversion that equalize the purchasing power of different currencies by eliminating the differences in price levels between the countries. And in simple form, if we will say, these purchasing power parities are simply price relatives that show the ratio of the prices in national currencies of the same good or service in different countries. That is what the purchasing power parity simply means. And these purchasing power parities are also calculated for product groups and for each of the various levels of aggregation up to and including the GDP also. So this purchasing power parity is a theory of exchange rate determination and a way to compare the average costs of goods and services between countries. This is what purchasing power parity theory is saying. And this purchasing power parity theory is an aggregated version of the law of one price. So this purchasing power parity is an aggregate version of the law of one price. Now what this law of one price is, that is very important to know and understand before we go into the purchasing power parity. So what this law of one price is, let's have a look on that. So the law of one price is saying that the law of one price is the foundation of purchasing power parity, what we have just now understood. And this purchasing power parity states that the value of two currencies is equal when a basket of identical goods is priced the same in both the countries. So when we are paying the same amount or the same money for the burgers that we are having at India and having at USA, that is what we are saying the law of one prices. That means the price is same in both the countries. So it ensures that buyers have the same purchasing power across the global markets. In reality, this purchasing power parity is difficult to achieve due to various costs in trading and the inability to assess markets for some individuals. So that is what is there, the criticality. So the formula for purchasing power parity is useful in that it can be applied to compare prices across markets that trade in different currencies. And as exchange rates can shift frequently, the formula can be recalculated on a regular basis to identify the mispricings across various international markets. So, the law of one price says that identical goods should sell for the same price in two separate markets when there are no transaction costs and no differential taxes applied in the two markets. This is what the law of one price is saying. So, if the price of any economic good or security is consistent in two different free markets after considering the effects of currency exchange rates, then to earn a profit, an arbitrator will purchase the asset in the cheaper market and sell it in the market where prices are higher. So, this is what we know the arbitrators are doing. And when the law of one price holds, the arbitrage profits such as this will persist until the price coverage across the markets. And we can understand this with an example, that if a particular security is available at $10 in market A, but is selling for the equivalent of $20 in market B, investors could purchase the security in market A and immediately sell it for $20 in market B. So, making a profit of $10 without any true risk or shifting of the markets. So, this is what is the example of the theory is. So, here what is done, that if you will remember, we had talked of arbitrage and arbitrators, those who are making profit out of nothing, we are saying. So, that means what? With the discrepancy in the prices that are prevailing in two different markets, they are making money out of that. Like for in this example what we have said, if the particular commodity is at $10 in market A, but the same commodity of same value is $20 in market B, then the arbitrator can make instant profit of $10 by buying it at $10 and selling it at $20. So, this is what can be the example. So, as the securities from market A are sold on market B, prices on both markets should change in accordance with the changes in supply and demand, all else equal. So, this is what should be there. So, increased demand for these securities in market A, where it is relatively cheaper, should lead to an increase in its price there. So, conversely, increased supply in market B, where the security is being sold for a profit by the arbitrator, should lead to a decrease in its price there. So, this should be there in the market A and market B. These should be the conditions. And over time, what will happen, that this would lead to a balancing of the price of the securities in the two markets, that is, we are talking of the market A and the market B, and the returning it to the state suggested by the law of one price. So, as per the law of one price, according to the supply and demand of these two markets A and market B, over the time there will be a balancing. This is what the law of one price is saying. So, now what this loop states, that if there is a free trade, that means no tariffs or no quotas, etc., and transportation costs are also low relative to the value of the product, then identical products sold in different locations will sell for the same price when expressed in the common currency. So, when we are going to express in the same currency, then these are the things what the law of one price is stating. Now, this law of one price let's understood with another example. If suppose a diamond of high quality sells for €1,000 in Amsterdam and $4,000 in New York. So, the exchange rate there, if we will have, is $1.5 per euro is the exchange rate of these two currencies. Then the trader would buy the diamond for $1,500 in Amsterdam and sell in the what, $4,000 in New York. That could happen. So traders would continue doing this, driving up the price in Amsterdam and driving down the price in New York. So according to the supply and demand, or according to the law of one price, that will be there, that the price in the Amsterdam will drive up and the price in the New York will drive down, and it will most probably come down to €200 in Amsterdam and $3,000 in New York. That might happen. So this is what we know, and now we will understand that what makes the law of one price work, how this law of one price is working. So for example, an ounce of gold, suppose, should cost the same on commodity exchange in Chicago and London. So if the gold costs more on one exchange, then traders would have incentive to purchase the gold on one exchange and sell it at the other one. So they should do that, what is called as arbitrage, we know. So when there is difference in the commodity, same commodity of same quality and the quantity in one market and with the other market, then the arbitrator will definitely going to trade on that and make profit out of that. And an arbitrage is a trading strategy, we know, that requires the investment of no capital. As we have already told, that arbitrageurs are making money out of nothing. That means they are not investing anything, or they are not putting any capital, or there is no risk of capital loss. So when there is no investment of capital, definitely there is no risk of capital loss. And where there is some positive probability of making money also there. So the traders with gold would know how much they pay at one exchange and receive at the other one. So they would borrow money to realize immediate beforehand known profit. So they would realize arbitrage risk-free profit. So the profit that they are realizing, they will immediately get it, and this realization of profit is known as arbitrage risk-free profit. So this law does not always hold in practice. So the reason behind this is what? That mostly transaction costs and trade barriers are there, which is restricting them or holding the arbitrages to make profit out of that. So there may be limits on how much gold one can export or import out of the country. So this is why the export and import barriers or export and import restrictions are there between countries, and it costs something to buy gold in Chicago and have it shipped to London. So these are the things which is restricting, or these are the things which is there, which is always holding that to come to in practice, that there will be shipping charges, or what we are saying, the transportation costs, and there are other trade barriers while we are importing or exporting important or valuable commodities. Now we will understand with an example that suppose in the UK as the domestic market and in the US as a foreign market. So we will consider an example where we are in the domestic market of UK and US is a foreign market, and if we suppose say that the price of an iPhone in the UK is PI pound and in the US is PI dollar, then it is attainable to get the price of an iPhone on the United States market determined by the exchange rate of these two currencies. So this will be like this will be the formula of this, and let's assume it as equation 1. So the law of one price indicates in equation 1 that the price of an iPhone must be identical as in the United States. So law of one price, as we have already discussed, that there should be identical price between the markets. So according to that, what we get in the equation 1 should identical to the foreign price that we are going to trade in. So if we use the second equation below, in which the expressing exchange rate, the amount of US dollars per UK pound exchange rate, for example, suppose 4:2, and we estimate that the price for an iPhone in the United Kingdom is £400, then in the United States it will be $800. Like this, the equation 2 we are getting. So if we go further and presume that the pound boosted by 300 pounds, and ingenious trader will purchase iPhone probably in the US market and trade them to the UK market. So a class of operations when one generates profit from price variation in distinct nation, what we know that is known as the arbitrage. And if those arbitrages raise in the largest scales, the higher demand will increase the cost of the US iPhone and will make this United States product overpriced for the United Kingdom requesters. So similarly, the iPhone on the United Kingdom market would get economical as a result of the increased supply of this iPhone from the United States. So that will happen. So this evolution will continue as far as the price constraint at the symmetry, which is suggested by the purchasing power parity amidst the United States dollar and United Kingdom pound. And this will be the thing that we are going to get, that to get from the law of one price to purchasing power parity, rather than the price of a similar product such as iPhone in our example that we have taken of law of one price, we need to use the price of the basket of services and goods which serves the price level of an economy altogether in a fixed time period. So here we are getting the equation 3. This will be the equation which we are getting. And in this what we have, where we have using this alpha, the density of a specific product or group of products. This I is the whole economy, Pi is the price of the product, and T is the certain period of time in which we are going to deal with that. So this is an example with which we have cleared that what is the purchasing power parity and its relationship with the law of one price is. So this is how we come from the loop to the PPP, that is the law of one price to the purchasing power parity. So the purchasing power parity theory is really what we know is just the law of one price applied in the aggregate, but with a slight twist that is added. That is what is the relationship, or we can say that from the law of one price we are moving towards the purchasing power parity. So if it makes sense from the law of one price that identical goods should sell for identical price in different markets, then the law of ought to hold for all identical goods sold in both the countries. So if we are applying that, if it is making sense, then it should happen that the identical goods that is going to be sold at two different markets will be same, or the price that is there in different markets will ought to hold the same for the identical goods. So that is what is the purchasing power parity, and the relationship with the purchasing power parity with the law of one price is. So this is what is the purchasing power parity is, and we understand that what is the purchasing power of a particular currency. Well, we are talking of the exchange rate, or we are talking of the foreign trade, or definitely when we are talking of the future trading or derivative trading, this holds a quite great importance. So this is what purchasing power parity is, and we also understood that how this purchasing power parity come out of the theory of or the law of one price. So that is what the relationship or the aggregated version of the law of one price is, that we are knowing as the purchasing power parity. I hope and believe that you people have understood that what this purchasing power parity is with the various examples that we have discussed, and in our further classes we are going to discuss many other topics in the financial derivatives that is there. Till then, keep watching. Thank you.